Hello, Temple Betham, and early Shabbat Shalom. It's been a little bit since I sent one of these Friday messages out, and I wanted to give you a brief Dvar Torah, a little update on how things are happening in the community, and also offer a meditation at the end. So if you stay with me until the very end, there'll be a meditation. And if you stay with me just two-thirds of the way in, you'll get update and Torah. So first of all, just where we are right now. Yesterday was 7 weeks since Mayor Garcetti issued this safer at home order. Uh, One of the weirdest 7 weeks I can remember in my entire lifetime. Um, when it first began, we had a hard time imagining how it would last a week or more and what it would feel like to live through that time. And now, in ways that are both good and not good, we've gotten used to it, right? It is both good to get used to something new that is unpleasant so that you can have some sense of acceptance of it. I keep speaking to so many people, including many of you who might be listening to this right now. We don't want to get used to this. We don't want to get used to leading davening by myself in the sanctuary, just trying to conjure all of you rather than having you be there. We don't want to get used to this being the way that we interact with each other, and we certainly don't want to get used to this way of living our economic and financial lives. So we are in both places simultaneously. We should feel grateful for the extent to which we've adapted to this, and we've adapted personally and institutionally and communally, not perfectly, but well. And we want to make sure we don't get so used to it that it's actually hard to move back into the life that we are so much looking forward to being able to lead when we can get there. I want to give a particular shout out and kudos to the B'nai Mitzvah families who are confronting things that are really hard to imagine in terms of taking a date on the calendar that had been anticipated for years and trying to imagine doing it in very, very different ways. Some families are postponing B'nai Mitzvah to the same Parsha a year later. Some families are postponing it to a different Parsha a half a year later, hoping that by then the situation will have changed enough that we can gather, but it means a lot more work for that student who worked really hard to prepare one parsha. We're also thinking of some creative ways of turning Shabbat morning B'nai Mitzvah into smaller digital Thursday morning experiences through the Zoom, which can be interactive because we are using interactive Zoom davening during the week, but not on Shabbat. And I'm not going to name the names, but I'm looking at all of you who have upcoming B'nai Mitzvah in the next few weeks and months, thanking you for your flexibility, for working with myself, and tremendous amount of work being put out there by Rabbi Chorny and Rabbi Schatz as they work with families to try to resolve these situations. We're doing everything we can to deliver for you and your child and your extended families an event worthy of the name of the Bar Bat Mitzvah. Summer is not so far away. Some of you know that yesterday the Reform movement put out an announcement saying that all Reform summer camps are closed for in-person camping this summer, a decision that we know makes some sense and is also heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for the individual campers and counselors who will not get the experiences that they so much wanted and deserved. It's heartbreaking for the camps themselves, just to try to imagine what it means for a camp to simply not happen, what kind of financial worry the people running those camps are dealing with. And we have that of course, in our own community in several different ways. We have Camp Ramah and Camp Alonim and other camps that we send our kids to, wondering whether or not they're going to be open this summer. We have the directors of some of these camps who are dear members of our community who are shouldering so much stress and pressure as they're trying to make these decisions, balancing the most important thing, which is the health and well-being of their campers and their families, with the health and well-being of the entire institution. And we have Camp Keshet, our own wonderful day camp on campus that Rosen has been running for so many years. We don't have answers yet, but I want you to know that the staff and the lay people are discussing every single possible way we can make a camping experience happen this summer safely and justifiably. I also want to thank all of you who participated in the survey that was mostly organized last week by Rabbi Schatz. We're eager to hear the feedback from how you are handling the situation, what your needs are from the community. We cannot promise that we're able to meet every need, but it's so helpful for us to know what those needs are so we can do a better job of finding where you are in this. And the feedback we got was really helpful, and you're gonna hopefully see the ways in which we're gonna offer different things as a result of what we've heard from you. So thank you for participating in that. I want to move to a piece of Torah. I want to start by reflecting that losing oneself has always been, for me, a significant part of religious life, even before I could articulate it in that way. I think about when I was a child and I used to go to Manhattan for Rosh Hashanah because my grandparents lived there, and I would go to synagogue at Lincoln Square Synagogue on the west side, and I would go down to do tashlich with Rabbi Shlomo Riskin, before he made Aliyah and founded the town of Efrat. He would do tashlich at the boat basin on 79th Street in the Hudson River. And rather than it be, quote unquote, just throwing pieces of bread into the water and reciting the verses from Micha, from the prophet Micah, that have to do with the ritual of tashlich, it would be a mini Simchat Torah. We would sing and dance with abandon and lose ourselves in the frenzy of the moment. I couldn't have used those words then to describe it. I was only 6 or 7 years old, but I knew that I was being a part of a spiritual moment that was allowing itself to spill over its boundaries. I think about Ruach at camp and in the Chadarocha, in the dining hall, or at USY events, what it means for an individual to be willing to lose a bit of himself or herself in order to join the tremendous moment that is happening around them, and to try to get closer to God and closer to a spiritual moment. There is a shedding of self-consciousness, which I think is part of some ecstatic religious experiences. Having a few moments, not relentlessly, but a few moments of exquisite religious frenzy and fervor. I've spoken about this before. I think some of that is lost in a sad way in the staid and structured world of communal Jewish prayer. We don't always lose ourselves in our sanctuaries, in our chapels, in our daily minions. We follow the instructions that the rabbi, the gabbai has given. We bow when we're supposed to bow. We turn to the right page, and we wonder what we look like when other people are staring at us. There's something that's lost in that. There's also something a bit safer in not getting too close to the edge. I think about that when I think about a commentary on the opening lines of the Parsha this week. We have a double Parsha, Aharei Mot Kedoshim, but the first Parsha, Aharei Mot, authored by the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Chassidut. And he notices that there is a redundancy. So much of biblical interpretation begins with a redundancy in the opening lines of the Parsha. Aharei Mot, after the death of Shnei B'nei Aharon, the two sons of Aaron, that's Nadav and Abihu, who died in Parshat Shmini a few weeks ago, Bekorvatam El Adonai V'yamutu, as they got close to God and they died. The Baal Shem Tov notes that it says, and they died twice in the verse. Aharei Mot, after the death of, at the beginning of the verse, and V'yamutu, and they died at the end of the verse. What does he mean by it? He quotes a midrash that notices that the words achar and acharei both mean after in Hebrew, but the way they are used, the Torah, is a little more, is subtle. And the midrash reads that when it's achar, it is denoting a smichut, a closeness, a connection. And when it's acharei, which is what we have in our verse, he says it's muflag. There's a distance, there's a separation. Aharei Mot Shnei B'nei Aharon. He's reading it through the midrash as not after the death of, but Shnei B'nei Aharon, the two sons of Aaron, were somehow muflag, distanced, separated, not from death itself, but from the fear of death. What does this mean? He would say that these two priests in training spent their entire lives of religious, spiritual service so close to death That seems like a weird thing to say. Why is spiritual service bringing close to death? Well, they lost themselves a little bit in a beautiful way and in a terrifying way. They got close to God. That's what that phrase at the end of the verse means. Bekorbatam lifnei Adonai. In their drawing close to God, viamutu. They died a little bit. Because they died a little bit, kind of a beautiful spiritual death, if that makes some sense, they stopped fearing death, which means they got more and more comfortable going to the edge every single time, right? Like Sylvester and Tweety Bird. Every time you get to the edge and you feel safe, you're going to go a little bit farther the next time. There are so many examples of that in our relationships with so many things, spiritual life included. How do we understand this description of Nadav and Avihu, that they kept in their service of God, getting close to the edge, close to the hot core of God's presence, that they stopped being afraid of the very death that might have been threatened because of their drawing so close? We know that Moshe was told he couldn't get so close to God because if he did, he would not be able to recover. Is this a praise of two young priests in training? It's admirable on some level to be so lost in your spiritual quest that you kind of forget about momentary needs and you forget about earthly and mortal needs. Or is this a critique, right? Going back to the Greek mythology that an Icarus will eventually get so close to the sun that he will fall and he will die. He will get burned. I like to read this midrash, and I wonder if the Baal Shem Tov meant it in two ways. The Baal Shem Tov, who was the founder of a religious tradition that was based on fervor, based on losing yourself, based on an uproarious way of doing religious life. On the one hand, I think he was saying, and I would say to myself and to you, it's okay to lose yourself a bit in the service of something greater. It's okay to let yourself go a bit in prayer. It's okay to close your eyes and not care what you look like in that moment when you're engaging in your spiritual endeavors. Not necessarily in order to feel close to death. That part of the analogy doesn't work so well for me, but perhaps to feel the lightness, the fleeting nature, and the tenderness of life, which you feel most powerfully when you allow yourself to let go in some of those moments. And at the same time, very different in the age of the Baal Shem Tov than now, but some truths are present in every generation. As we are all living through right now, it's impossible to sustain living through constant near misses, constant vulnerability. Darting too close into the sun and moving away just in time can be thrilling, but it's no normal way to go through life. It's no way to live. Because one day you just might be consumed as Nadav and Avihu, these priests in training, were because they got too close. A natural fear of death keeps us safe, even if it means living with a little bit less risk, a little bit less abandon, a little more care. I think that's our balance, or the balance we're supposed to be achieving during this era, during the era of COVID. Stay away from the edge. Stay away from risks to ourselves and others. And also find a way to stay away from despair. And one of the ways that we stay away from despair is by dancing and swaying and praying and singing and letting ourselves go and meditating contemplatively and engaging exuberantly and allowing ourselves to get in close to God, to lose a bit of ourselves in the wonder of being alive. And my friends, it is still a wonderful thing to be alive. And I'm so honored that I get to share a part of my life in the wonder of sharing it with all of you. So I wish those of you who do not want to stay for the meditation of Shabbat Shalom, and if you want to stay with me for a few minutes, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. We'll do this short and sweet. Take a few deep breaths, the kind of breaths that are cleansing, in through the nose and out through the mouth a little bit longer than the inhale. Suspend disbelief for a moment in what you know about the way physiology truly works, and imagine that you are breathing not just through your air passageways in your nostrils and your mouth and your lungs, but as if every cell is breathing. Because on some level it is. That oxygen gets to everywhere in your body so quickly. Try to breathe with your body. And find the places in your body where tension is being held in your shoulders and release them in your fingers and unfurl them. In your jaw and in your eyes and unclench them. Allow your dignified spine to hold you up as you sag so beautifully, so comfortably in every other part of your body. And what I want us to linger on for just a few moments, even and especially in a time of COVID, even and especially in a life of restrictions, even and especially when fear lurks and uncertainty is around us. Let your mind wander to a place where it knows that it is wondrous to be alive. It is wondrous to feel. Even pain is a wonder, because to feel nothing is unimaginable. It is a wonder to be. It's a wonder to swallow, a wonder to sit. It's a wonder to be human, and it's a wonder to reach towards the divine. It's a wonder to think and to know, and it's a wonder to not know, to be curious. It's a wonder to breathe. It's a wonder to be so aware of death, our own one day and others all around us, and somehow be so committed, so devoted, so active in life. Orient yourself towards a Shabbat of wonder. Orient yourself towards a Shabbat where you tiptoe to some of the edges that are keeping you in and keeping you safe. But from that edge you can look out, see what's on the other side of the horizon. Lose yourself a bit in what can be, what may be, what you hope will be. May it be a Shabbat of health and of vigor, of safety and of exuberance, of mitigating risks and of claiming life with profound wonder. when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And I say to you, Shabbat Shalom, and I miss you, and I love you.